Morning, foggers, coming to you from a little different place this morning. Went out to one of our local beaches, get out by the water. It's always nice to do that. Today's post, there's a couple things just concerning logistically. We're getting our lights probably tomorrow. All of our cameras and mics and everything are in place and ready to go. So as far as that, we'll be kicking off very soon. The other thing was, I never wake up and say to myself, this is what I'm going to talk about. In fact, I've been posting more than what I originally thought I was going to post. So this weekend on Saturday, I got a phone call from a very old friend, very advanced in the world of trauma, I'll leave it at that. But we were talking about, some of the connections. He was asking me like, hey, do you have this symptom and that symptom? And we shared a lot of things that we have had wrong with us, like just crying. Like sometimes we'll sit in the car, or you get home, and sometimes he says he gets home from the shift and he gets emotional. And so what I told him was that when I went through my therapy session in the past, there was always something, we see a lot of stuff. There's traumatic events and grotesque things that we see, but the real issue with us comes in when it is tied or triggered by something that either happened to us or that we know of. And I shared with him this case, and I won't get into certain details, but I had a case, the case that you see on the post that I have of embassy, where the face was covered up. That was me. The department at that point didn't want me to show my face. I was good with it at that point. I had come to peace with, saying who I was. But that case, what they didn't say there, that 16-year-old girl that died in that car crash was a suicide. She was 16 years old. Again, not getting into too explicit of details for protection of her family, but she had gotten in trouble earlier in the day, and she wrote a letter. I had just taken my promotional exam to become a sergeant, and my sergeant had allowed me to run the squad. So I was summoned to the scene. Immediately we realized, okay, this girl is missing. The car's missing. She had written a letter, a suicide letter. We did everything by the book. Missing persons, the whole 9-yard, media, flyers, and everything was done. Tragically, the day after that, there was a call waiting for me that a friend had found a cell phone in a certain area, and that led us to the vehicle in the water where the girl was found dead. And like I say in that interview, I was there and I saw the girl, and the whole process of breaking down the scene and all the investigation and stuff, and it was a very tragic event. But 10 years after that, 10 whole long years, for 10 years I would see that girl's face, and some of you may say, man, that's pretty crazy, but the ones that have been there like I have will say, no, it's not crazy. When you have a traumatic experience, you can smell and see and feel. So for 10 years, every time I would drive that certain apartment building in Southwest Miami, I would literally see the girl's face. So the Miami-Dade Fire Union was very kind and paid for me to go to a PTSD retreat with some firefighters and Marines and stuff, and we went to Tampa. And again, this was 10 years after the fact, and the therapist, this was a week-long PTSD retreat, and the therapist tells me, well, pick 2 incidences that you want to, work on. And again, I've seen much more grotesque stuff than this call, although it was extremely tragic involving a child. So I picked the suicide of the 16-year-old female that I handled, and I had a crash, a single vehicle crash involving the girl who's probably 18 or 19 years old, by herself out in a very remote rural place out in Southwest Miami, where I basically drove up to the call and there was nobody else there. And so I picked those two calls, and through that EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing therapy, I was able to go back to those scenes and make them good again. Not save their life, but make them good in a sense where I can handle them and go through the emotion and the feeling that a normal, quote unquote, normal person would go through. And then I went on. Now in that process, I was just bawling, crying, snot, everything. It was horrific, crying like a little kid. And after each exercise, the therapist told me, you are now mourning these girls the way you should have been able to do at the time, and they will never bother you again. And that's why I'm telling you that therapeutic process, EMDR, is amazing. Why did I say the story? Because in talking to that officer and my friend this weekend, I was able to tell him that the reason why those two incidences bothered me so much were because they were female and I was helpless in helping them. Now, what's the big deal with that? When you see my interview, and I do my interview for you guys, you'll see it goes right back to my relationship with my mother and the dysfunction that I had as a child. And they directly correlate. So although I had seen more horrific and gruesome things, what bothered me the worst were these two girls. Again, the correlation of being female and that I was helpless in helping them. Okay, and so I told this to this friend of mine, and I was like, listen, you got to go to therapy and you've got to work on that, and hopefully he'll do that, and we'll continue to talk. The other thing was another officer that's going through some relationship issues, and that officer tells me, man, is there a way to being hypnotized so I just have no more emotion? And I jumped all over that officer's shit because I said, this is what we're fighting for. We're fighting to have emotion. Just because we don't want to be emotional, and emotions suck. You know, you go through a breakup, you go through some tragedy, and you have to cry, and it's sad, and you want to be alone, you don't want to do certain things. That's what we want. That's what we don't have. Look how many calls we go to, and we're getting into this zombie robotic mindset where we get back in the police car and we go to the next call. That's crazy. That is asinine. That's wrong. That's not what we want to do. Yes, we can get to a call and involving a child or a woman or somebody that relates to us and go crazy. You have to handle the call and do your job. That's understood. Okay, that's not what we're saying. But what we're saying is at some point after that, there has to be a decompression and an acknowledgement of your emotions and your feelings. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, it sucks. It sucks to go to a funeral and lose a family member, a mother, a father, a sibling, a child, God forbid, and it sucks. And it feels like shit. But guess what? You feel. And that's why we're fighting for this, to feel again, because we don't feel. So I told that officer, embrace how you feel and do what you feel like doing. You want to be alone, you want to be whatever, I'm here, you call me. Don't be in isolation, but go through your emotions. It's a process. It's like scabbing your knee when you fall off a bike. That's all that we're fighting for. So don't be scared of emotion. Those days have to go down the drain, okay? Feeling and emotion is what we're fighting for. The ability to do it. Again, at the right time, you still have to do your job, and somebody has to take out the garbage. But that's what we're talking about, is we're fighting for that right. And in a weird sense, when I went through that EMDR with that girl and I cried so much, I now know that there's a part of me, and this is going to sound nuts to you guys, but there's a part of me that misses her. Right? There's a part of me that understood what she went through. I have no idea what caused her to do that. But obviously there have been some issues before that we didn't know before the call. But that's what I want to leave with you guys, that there is a part of me that misses that girl. And there is a part of me that understands where her mindset was. The only thing that we're talking about when we talk about suicide, and it's a very, and again, that'll go to my childhood. I'm not an expert. I don't want to sit here and say the wrong things about that. But later on in my career, I would respond to these suicides as a supervisor, and all I would say is, man, if you only had made a phone call, if somebody had only said, hey, what's wrong? Hey, let's talk. It's emotion. When you're not able to have emotion and feeling, again, that is not crisis. It's feeling and emotion. That's a part of life, man. That's what we're fighting for. So I wanted to, based on that phone call, just give you a little snippet of what my interview is going to be about when it comes up, and it'll be very soon as we're getting all of our equipment. But I told that friend of mine and that officer what the direct correlation was, just so he knows how deep this goes. This is not about pulling up to a scene and seeing blood and guts and that now you have trauma. Yeah, that sucks. But our biggest problems usually, and just because I've spoken to so many people over the last 13 years, it has some correlation to us, okay? So don't be scared to feel emotion and to just express them. Maybe you can't express them to everybody. Maybe some people shut you down in your life, but at 3 a.m. Fog, we're not going to do that, okay? We're not going to do that. I'm always available for anybody. That officer that called me last night was 9:30. I was already in bed because I'm an old fart now. But I got up and I went to the living room and I spoke to that officer. That doesn't make me any better. It just makes me understanding that sometimes you need somebody to talk to. So with that, at one of our beautiful beaches here, I just wanted to change the scenery a little bit. Botox is kicking in. Glasses are on. And I hope you guys get something from these videos. Again, I'm no expert, but I've been through the grinder. And with that, that saying that I still miss that girl, maybe you guys understand that. Give me some feedback. Call me, message me, whatever. It's confidential. Get a fake name, whatever you need to do. But I'm here, all right? Let's keep rolling with this. And also spread. We don't only want first responders here. We want civilians too. Why? Because they need to understand us, right? They only see the bad things on TV. They need to understand sometimes why those things happen. Okay? So with that, I leave you, love you, and keep pushing forward, never backwards, okay? Thanks, guys.